Mic check. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, I am Valentin Bura. I am a self-taught DJ and musical producer. I have learned this trade by myself, and I've learned some really cool stuff along the way, and I want to pass it on to you. Okay? So, welcome. This is my studio. I have a pretty professional setup here. It is my hobby, but it is semi-professional, and I'm trying to make an income out of it. It doesn't really work out my way so far, but here it is. I am trying to share my knowledge with you, and I will share everything that I have learned, because this is my philosophy, okay? If I learn something, the world must learn something. My money is not for myself only. So, since this is pro bono type of stuff, I'm relying on freeware mostly. So, guys, be realistic about your stuff. If we're talking about 50 function calls on Python, don't expect to make a fortune out of that. So just do post it as freeware. I am doing pro bono stuff. I'm expecting the same from you guys. So let's get to work. Here it is, the table of contents. So chapter 1, I'll be giving you a bonus. Chapter 1 is a bonus. I'm getting into the habit. In my teaching activities, I've taught extensively in the past. I've taught at university. I've taught private lessons in mathematics and computer science. I've got into the habit of giving people bonuses. I'm not patronizing people or anything. I'm not looking down on people. I'm just giving them honest advice, things that I've picked up from my experience. And most people are actually perceptive. Most people do have the patience of actually listening to my stuff. So that's the bonus. Chapter 1, your daily activities. Chapter 2, it's a prerequisite. How to use other people's work. Is that essential? Is that required? Am I able to build stuff from scratch? Or am I bound to use other people's work? Chapter 3, a prerequisite to our tools. What type of tools should we use? Are they essential? Is it the fact that tools give us the edge? Things like that. Chapter 4, a basic fact: sampling is essential to DJing, not to musical production. So we're making sort of a difference here between DJing and musical production. Sampling is essential to DJing, people. So it's not the same thing. DJing is not the same thing without sampling other people's work. Chapter 5, pre-processing. So I'm going to actually give you the things that I have learned in chapter 5. So I'm working with echoes, looping and sample curating. These are my techniques. This is what I have picked up. This is what I have learned. Chapter 6, putting everything together. So I'm working with tempos and time delays a lot. And my basic experience, my basic expertise is in mastering. And I've already achieved a lot in mastering. I have contributed to common knowledge a lot in mastering, okay? So, yeah, and that was pro bono, and I encourage you to do pro bono work too. Chapter 7, marketing and packaging. And the thing that I'll try to convey to you is, am I really saying something? Okay, so that's the most important thing. The most important thing is not the number of clicks or the number of likes or the number of views on your material. The most important thing on your material is if you are conveying a message. Okay, so that's the substantial bit. So without further ado, let's get to work. So here it is, the bonus chapter. I hope I will arouse your interest with this chapter. It's just something that I've learned myself with a lot of toil and a lot of work. I have worked in IT for a while. I have worked in academic projects, 4 or 5 academic projects. I have taught a lot. I have taught extensively at university. I have taught private lessons in mathematics and computer science. This is what I have learned. So chapter 1, your daily activities. So 2 messages that I'm trying to convey to you here. You must attend your lectures and try to listen, even if you don't understand one single thing that it is said. Okay? That is precious knowledge. We live in a knowledge-based society. Everything is knowledge. Everything is expertise. Everything is either know that or know how. Okay? And that thing, the knowledge that is passed on to you during your lectures or during private conversations with your supervisors or your lecturers, that sort of thing is precious. It's more than precious, it's priceless. Okay? And that sort of stuff will come back to you. Okay? It will come back to you sooner or later. So even though you don't understand one thing, you must attend to your courses and do that well. Okay? In every research activity, in a research activity in school, you must fake it until you make it, basically. As Wittgenstein puts it, we often rely on an ostentatious. It's not ostentatious. The term is not ostentatious. The term is, Wittgenstein's term is ostensive, I believe, from memory. So that just says that we are building on the language. So first we're building on the terminology, and then we understand the concept globally. So don't expect to understand everything from the beginning. You are expected to build up on a terminology first, okay? And that requires work. That requires experience. Secondly, maybe you're not a student, maybe you have a job. Are you unhappy in your job? Maybe your manager is stressing you too much. Maybe your manager points out that you're not doing your job as you should. So if you are unhappy with your occupation, chances are that you don't understand what you're doing. Okay, so think about it like that. If you're unhappy in your job, do you understand your job? Most of the time, what you're doing is very subtle. Even if you're doing data entry or telemarketing, stuff like that, office work, you should understand your job, okay? So try to understand what you're doing properly. Try to understand your role in the chain, okay? In the chain of command, in your business, in the business that you work in the purpose of the business that you work, try to understand your role properly. Try to understand what you are doing. You will be very happy with your work eventually, okay? So take that from somebody that has been unemployed for 7 years now. Enjoy your job because you are useful. You are a useful citizen, okay? So moving on to chapter 2, a prerequisite, how to use other people's work, or more generally, using other people's work. My take on this is that it is impossible to rely on yourself only. Okay? What is it that man does all by himself? Nothing. Okay? So, usually when you're doing something productive, when you're doing a creative act, you are automatically relying on a network of people that either do the same thing or do things tangentially to what you are doing. So my take on this is that it is impossible to actually rely on yourself only. That's on chapter 4 too. Chapter 4 is about sampling. And on chapter 4, I make the case that sampling is essential, actually. But let's stick to chapter 2. So, whenever you're using other people's work, you should think if it's obvious or not. Is the reference obvious enough? If an acknowledgement is required, that is, so an acknowledgement may be required if the reference is not obvious enough. If your work is obviously referencing another guy's work, well, a reference may not be required. If your work is a collage or a pastiche, it is not required. It is not usually required to give a reference. If the reference is obvious, you may, so to speak, insult the reader or the listener if you give the reference. Sometimes it's a nice effect to mask your references and make it subtle, depending on the message you are trying to convey. Okay? So I once wrote a passage in one of my novels. There's a passage that is a collage from the novel Lolita by Vladimir Nabokov, I believe that's the writer. and the passage was obvious, and I was expecting the reader to get the reference, so I did not state my influence on that one. And I'll give you two examples. On this work, I'm using, so this is my song, and I'm using the instrumentals from Tequila Sunrise by Cypress Hill. And that is obvious, okay? So, and I made the decision. It was a production decision. It was not marketing as such, but it does have marketing connotations. So I made the decision of using that instrumental because that's what the song was all about. That was the most fitting instrumental for the song. I could have created something original. I could have created something that would have been really good, but it wouldn't have had the same impact. Okay, so it was all a matter of impact. So that was the most fitting instrumental for the song in question. And, well, I did not give the reference. I thought that it was obvious, okay? So, I guess that was the decision, and I'm willing to pay royalties for that. That's no problem. This is the second song that I want to present to you. That is an intro to one of our albums. That's Jonah over there. I'm working with my friend Jonah on our lyrics. So in this song, I have used percussion. So I'm making a distinction between beats and percussions. These days, there's a distinction. Back in my day, when I first picked this up in high school, beats meant percussion. That was in the 90s. These days, beats refer to something else. Beats are snippets. To term them more accurately, beats are snippets. So, but I'll use the terminology percussion just so I don't confuse you. So I'm using percussion from the Wu-Tang Clan on this one. So I got the percussion from one of RZA's intros, namely the intro of the W, the album The W. I really like the percussion on that one. I thought it builds up really well. I also like RZA's style. RZA is I'm trying to copy him. I'm trying to collage him or pastiche him a lot. RZA is a major influence for me. I really like his style. I like his dark style. I like the way he's using effects, and well, he's a really good, awesome producer. So I've used his percussion on this one. That wasn't obvious, okay? That wasn't obvious, and I haven't credited that either. But at the same time, so it was a marketing. It had a marketing tangential choice. So the choice for the percussion in question had a marketing aspect about it. But in saying that, I don't think I crossed the line. So I guess, as I will make this point obvious in chapter 4 below, sampling is essential. Okay, so sampling is essential. I can't see, there's no way I can see what I'm doing without sampling. Okay, so these were the two examples that I wanted to give to you. So yeah, using other people's work may be sensitive, but don't be afraid of using other people's work. If you need to pay royalties, you will pay royalties. You are going to pay royalties anyway. So, I guess, do your thing and convey your message. Chapter 3, Tools. So, guys, it is important we work together. It is important we are mindful of other people in what we're doing. So do post pro bono type of stuff. Okay? Don't expect to make an income and don't expect an easy income immediately. This will come with time. So, yeah, do provide knowledge and provide tools for other people. Do post pro bono type of stuff. So, our tools. The choice of tools isn't essential and it certainly doesn't cover for skill. Okay? That is the church Turing hypothesis. When I was studying computer science as an undergraduate, in our algorithms class, our lecturer always used to say, use your favorite programming language. Okay, so of course the choice of your tools does actually influence the way you are working. So you should choose something suitable for your work style. But the choice of tools isn't essential, okay? You should have a basic understanding of what you are doing. You should think abstractly, okay? So you should think as abstract as it gets about what you're doing. And do not place an essential emphasis on your choice of tools, okay? The choice of tools is somewhat independent from what you are doing. You should be able, so that's multiple realization in philosophy, in the philosophy of mind. And it means that you should be able to achieve the same thing no matter what tools you choose. Chapter 4. Sampling is essential. So, you want to use references. Okay, that's what this means. Do not be scared of using other people's work. Do not be scared of sampling. Okay? That is not a taboo. It is somewhat sensitive, but it isn't a taboo. You should be using it. You should learn how to use it. Okay? Back in the days, composers of classical music had debates amongst them. They were using each other's work. Okay? That's not a taboo, guys. Mathematicians, they were asking for each other's expertise. It is a field of study in the history of mathematics. You study the correspondence that mathematicians had amongst them. They were often asking each other questions. Okay, so this isn't a secret. This isn't something that's confidential as such. Here are two examples. So, in this song, Bomb Funk MCs are referencing Paris, Texas by Ry Cooder. I don't get the reference that much. It is a reference that's interesting in itself. I guess they wanted to say that this song will be a cult classic. Maybe that's what they wanted to say. But the reference in the beginning of the song is clear that is Paris, Texas. But the meaning of the reference is somewhat of a mystery to me. Second example, the Notorious Big. So the first example was a sample. So that's the first example. It's a snippet from Paris, Texas, inserted in the beginning of Freestyler by Bone Funk MCs. The second example, the Notorious Big, in his Hypnotize, references a lyrical snippet by Slick Rick. So Slick Rick delivered that in 86, I believe. 10 years later, the Notorious Big delivers a somewhat similar snippet on the chorus of his Hypnotize. I guess in doing this, he's comparing himself to Slick Rick. He's comparing his life to Slick Rick's. So I get it. That's totally admissible. And actually, Nelly in EI, he's referencing the Notorious Big on his chorus. So that's totally permissible in hip hop. It is permissible to use other people's lyrics, okay? So it is sensitive, but it's not a taboo, okay? It is sensitive and the reference should be clear. But again, do not be scared of using other people's work. It is essential to conveying your message, okay? We are having a debate. So everything you post online is public. Since it is public, it must make a reference to other people's work. So don't be scared of that. Chapter 5, Pre-processing. Now we get into the meat. My thesis advisor, Noam Greenberg, may he rest in peace, he used to say, whenever something was deemed as important, whenever a theorem was important, he used to say, this is the meat. Okay, so that's an obvious reference to Jewish stuff, I guess. It's a reference to Kiddush on Friday evening. But yeah, that's also why we keep mathematics, genealogy, and that sort of stuff, because, well, knowledge is passed through a tree, a genealogy tree. So my thesis advisor used to say, this is the meat, and now we're getting into the meat. So chapter 5 and chapter 6 are the meat in this presentation. So I'm using a lot of echoes, looping in sample curating. So pre-processing means curating your samples. That's what it means. I'm just using schematics here. So the prerequisite is a basic understanding of, I guess, of musical production. So you should have a working knowledge of musical production. So echoes and looping create excellent effects, guys. Okay, so I'm using Audacity for that. I don't have a mixing pad yet. All I'm producing is using Audacity. I need a mixing pad. For all of you software developers out there, I do need a mixing pad. So something very sleek, something rich in functionality, that would be nice. So looping is important. Okay, so looping is important, guys. So such that the samples that you're using, they're not that obvious. Depending if you want to make them obvious or not, that's a design choice in your snippets, in your beats. If you wish to call them beats, you are going to piss me off a little bit if you call them beats. Call them snippets, okay? Because beats refer to percussion in my dictionary. Okay, so you can loop. The best tool to loop with is RX11 by Azotop, but you can do it very neatly in Audacity too. Okay, echoes create a very cool effect. Echoes are very cool. Reversing your snippets, that's very cool too. That creates something like a scratch, okay? So you may create scratches by reversing your snippets. Okay, and at the end, don't forget to master your snippet. Okay, so snippets or beats, if you wish to call them like that, you're gonna piss me off. Snippets are not songs, because there may be more than one snippet that's required for a song. So a snippet is a song component. You may overlap them, you may interchange them, you may add delays. Okay, you may add delays and overlap them. Don't forget to master them at the end. So you master a snippet or an instrument, if you wish to call it an instrument. Though, I don't know, a beat and a snare, they're two different instruments, even though they're part of the same beat. They are part of the same snippet. They are two different instruments. Don't forget to master them. So you master them, you give them about a minus 0.2. Okay? So you master the snippet. This is a very essential fact. Something that I learned along the way is going to make your song very good. Okay? So you pump up the sound. You pump up the sound on the snippet in question, okay? Chapter 6. Putting it together, or assembling the song, assembling the production. This is the meat too. This is part of the meat of our presentation. So I'm using tempos and time delays a lot. So in tempos, why am I saying that I'm working with tempos? Because, well, if I have a percussion that's 90 beats per minute, a sphere or an effect or a keyboard that's 180 beats per minute will work with that percussion too. So a multiple, you work with multiples. So for a 60, no, 60 is too small. For a 90 beats per minute percussion, 180, 270, 360, and so on, the multiples will also work. And it's very good. It's very mind enhancing. It's mind enhancing. It's mind expanding. It's very, very good to listen to this type of a production. Time delays are also mind expanding. It means that, for example, if you have a percussion and you add a bass on top of that, you can delay the bass a little bit, and you do that uniformly. You delay it, and then you delay it again and again. You may delay it 3 or 4 times in a song. And that's also mind expanding. That's also very nice to listen to. So you can do this sort of stuff. That's the kind of stuff that I picked up while self-teaching myself production or DJing. At the end, don't forget to master your song. So you pump up the jam, as we say. As the song goes, do pump up the jam. And you do that by placing tracks on top of each other. Be careful because they are going to clip. The tracks will clip if you place them on top of each other like that, of course. So you work by adjusting the volume. You turn the volume towards minus until it doesn't clip. Okay, and that will give a fullness of sound that will pump up your jam considerably. Cool. Chapter 7, Marketing and Packaging. I have read a quote by, I don't know who it was by, somebody important said once that our brightest minds today are trying to make people click on ads. Okay, so the brightest minds that live in our times are spending all of their time trying to make people click on ads. Well, that's unessential, okay? Message is the most important thing. Are you saying something? Have you got anything worth saying? Is your message socially relevant? Are you relevant? Is your message relevant to the music of the times? Do you have a fact? Do you have anything to share? Do you have anything substantial? Okay, that is the most important thing in production. That is the most important thing in journalism. That is the most important thing in writing, in creative writing, in everything that you do. You must be relevant. Okay, that is the only important thing in marketing and packaging. Okay, the only important thing. Turnover is not important. The money that you're making is not important. The views or the likes that you receive or the subscribers that you get, these are secondly to your message, okay? So the message that you're trying to convey, that is the most important thing. That's about all. I hope you enjoyed this content. I certainly did enjoy creating this content for you. I should have mentioned that a working knowledge of musical production is required in order to make the most out of this content. I did not mention this in the beginning. Well, I hope you did enjoy this presentation, and please consider posting pro bono things online. It is all a debate. It is a discussion that we're having. It is a public debate. So pro bono stuff, freeware, perks like that, they are essential to the public debate in question. Thank you very much.